episode number 7 of the Kegger Media Podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, check out our content. Got things coming out weekly. This week we're going to get into some NFL free agency. It's kind of been going bananas, dude. I don't remember NFL free agency being this crazy. Starting out, right now the Steelers land a big name in DK Metcalf. They got George Pickens. I think they're going to be running deep balls all day long, and that's their entire offense. But they need a quarterback.
No, 100%.
Haven't signed one yet. A lot of talks. Rodgers, bring back Wilson. What do you do in this situation?
No, yeah, I think you got to move on from Wilson. Like, we saw what their ceiling was last year. It's like losing early in the playoffs. Bring in a gunslinger like Aaron Rodgers, somebody that can throw it deep, see what can happen. Like, and when he has weapons, he's actually pretty solid. We saw last year with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, he actually had a pretty good year. They didn't win a whole lot of games, but he personally had a good year. So I think he could actually do pretty well with those receivers and with a good defense. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers made a little run. What do you think?
Man, I almost think you have to I see what you're saying in that, but I also look at Aaron Rodgers, another year older, still has that big lingering injury that he came back from. His stats weren't too bad. But you have Russ, 36 years old, not as old as Rodgers. Now you got DK, who he's played with before, okay? He's got the deep ball. Russ, we know he has that, put it right in the breadbasket. You got two of those on the outside. I think the big things that's going to kill the Steelers, though, Najee Harris, look up his stats and stuff. May not put up insane yards. The guy doesn't miss games, though, okay? I think I saw the other day he hasn't, like, missed a game as a running back. And so him leaving to go to the Chargers, I think could be a big problem for them, too, that they're going to rely heavily on this pass game. So it'll be interesting because, yes, I agree. Rodgers, a lot of people crapped on the Jets last year, how bad they were. But looking at his stats, Rodgers actually didn't play too bad.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Najee Harris is a huge loss for them. Like, I know they still have Jaylen Warren, who he had a pretty good year last year, too, and he could probably be a lead back, but that's still a huge loss. Like, Najee Harris is a great running back, so to lose him is going to be tough. I heard another team getting thrown around in the Rodgers sweepstakes. Wanted to hear your thoughts. As a Vikings fan, they were kind of tossing that around. What do you think about him kind of coming in, giving J.J. McCarthy another year to kind of play behind a all-pro player like Aaron Rodgers?
Absolutely not. I will die on the hill and on my grave. We did it. I get Brett Favre came over. He's doing the same path. Brett Favre went Packers, Jets, Vikings. Rodgers, there's talks of that happening. My whole thing is we're signing a lot of players right now, okay? The Vikings, you look it up, they're saying they're having one of the top free agencies. We've gotten offensive linemen, defensive linemen, beefing up the lines. J.J. McCarthy has been a winner his whole career. Won a national championship his final year at Michigan. Actually was doing okay in the preseason going into last year. He was supposed to be our starting quarterback. I actually think that was kind of a good bridge year for him. It's not like he had an insane career-ending knee injury, okay? I think he's going to come back. He's going to be strong. I think if there's any time to put him in, it's now. And the reason I say that is because he's on his rookie contract. I think someone on their rookie contract, you need to use those years as much as you possibly can. Or it's going to come to the time like Jordan Love, you hardly get any playing time, and then you got to pay him a boatload of money, even though he hasn't played a lot because his rookie contract's up, okay? And then you start falling into that, okay, can't get the players, paying this person a lot of money. I do not want Aaron Rodgers anywhere near. Now, sadly, do I think he can come in and maybe do something with the weapons around there? I don't know. But I think he'll ask for almost too much money when we can still beef things up, okay? And throughout the season, we want to get other people on guaranteed contracts, different things like that. I think Aaron Rodgers could look for maybe a 2-3 year deal with someone. The Vikings we'd only offer a 1 year deal, okay?
Yeah.
I think it's JJ's time.
No, I agree. Rodgers probably gives you guys a better chance to win next year, but long-term wise, it's probably best to just give JJ the keys to the franchise, let him suck for a few years, and then see what happens once he kind of learns how to play in this league. So, yeah, I think avoiding Rodgers would probably be the best move. But what are your thoughts, other potential landing spots for him? Maybe, I know the Titans have an early pick, so they'll probably pick a quarterback. We still have the Giants don't really have a great quarterback. The Cleveland Browns only have Kenny Pickett. Where else do you see Rodgers landing?
Yeah, so let's bridge two stories right here together. Kenny Pickett, the Browns pay a boatload of money to a defensive line, okay? Myles Garrett, we're sadly going to see just a career that could have been a winner on other things, Hall of Fame career, but all that money's going to him to get Kenny Pickett at quarterback, okay? I think they're looking at him as being the starter, which is kind of insane to me. I think he should maybe look at Cleveland. We'll see if Rodgers is good or not. Go win in Cleveland. You're a goat. I honestly think a big landing spot for him, and just knowing the way egotistical Rodgers is, I think he kind of wants to be back up in New York. I honestly do think that going to the Jets would be a thing for the Giants, just because it would be a New York team. I think he almost wants to stick it to the Jets. And what a better way than being with New York? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that happening, especially with Malik Neighbors. They have a good young receiver, some talented young running backs, so I could see that happening.
And there's a lot of talks of Shador going there, right? So then it might be good for him to sit behind him. I know Shador's going to want to start right away. That's his persona. That's his whole thing. I don't think it'd be bad for him to sit behind Rodgers for 1 year.
Yeah. I also wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers just hangs it up and just doesn't come back, because his ego is so big. I don't see him joining such a low tier franchise like the Browns or the Giants, because he knows he's too old to fix these teams. He's just going to be along for the ride for another 4-13, 5-12 season. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get a call from, say, the Steelers or another team that can actually contend next year if he just hangs it up.
Okay, let me ask you this. Of these different quarterbacks, and you're hearing of free agency, the Vikings right now, we have only one quarterback under roster, and that's J.J. McCarthy. Hasn't played a snap other than played one preseason game, got hurt, played well in it, though, up to that point. We need some veteran presence in there, okay? You have to have that. And I want someone who's a backup, kind of like what Andy Dalton, he's doing that over for Bryce Young. Things like that, okay? What's your thoughts on the Vikings bringing in Jameis Winston?
Yeah, no, I think it makes a ton of sense, especially when you have such a young quarterback that's going to struggle, has some injury history. So I think it makes sense. Like you were saying, Andy Dalton kind of filled that role. When his young quarterback got hurt, we saw Joe Flacco fill in for Richardson this year. So I think it just makes sense in terms of a learning process for J.J. McCarthy, but also just for the team as a backup. Say you guys are 10-2 to start the season, and then he gets hurt. Now you have a decent quarterback to kind of fill in and actually play games in the playoffs. You don't have to go scramble and get some practice squad guy. So yeah, I think that would make a ton of sense to get a real veteran player, someone that's not bad, still playing games every once in a while. So yeah, and he's just a locker room guy. So Jameis Winston.
That's what I'm saying too. Everyone that you hear loves Jameis Winston. So it brings the camaraderie, it brings the veteran presence. Also, just talking him through adversity, right? Jameis Winston's been through a lot of adversity. Okay, he got shipped out of Tampa Bay. He's been shipped out of here. He's done a lot in his career to help that young gunslinger. And I think that would definitely help J.J. McCarthy. Do you think over in Baltimore, it seems like a lot falls apart over in Baltimore when wide receivers go there? It's a running back team. What's your thoughts on how the fit's going to be for DeAndre Hopkins going there?
Yeah, I don't know that makes that much of a difference. It's they already have so many weapons. They have a couple receivers. They got a great tight end. And it's they're a run-first team with Derrick Henry, Hill, Lamar running himself. So it's they already don't throw the ball very much, even though they have pretty good receivers and a good tight end. It's is another average to below, probably average receiver who's past his prime. Is that really going to help them much? I guess it's nice as a third option, a third receiver. But I expect his reign to kind of be like it was on the Chiefs, where you don't really notice him that much. Maybe every once in a while have a decent game. But I think he's going to be the fourth passing option on that team.
Yeah, I agree.
Much of a difference.
And for that, you have to look at it like, hey, the Raven 1 year, $6 million. Why not give it a shot, right?
Yeah.
See what it is. Add an extra weapon. It seems like that Ravens team. The AFC to me is just absolutely bananas right now. Because you have Cincinnati, they'll get a deal done. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, they franchise tag. That team will be back. Buffalo just landed Joey Bosa. Okay, so now you have a pass rusher. Hopefully, he can stay healthy. But then you have the Ravens now bulking up their wide receiver core. And then you still have to remember about the Chiefs, who have actually had kind of a quiet free agency right now. So it's like, are the Chiefs kind of fallen as these other teams just seem to be building and building?
No, they definitely are. Yeah, like the AFC is always just building on top of each other. Like there's some powerhouse teams in the AFC.
Dude.
So yeah, I think it makes sense for the Ravens, especially with Zay Flowers got injured at the end of last season. Mark Andrews dropped that ball in the playoffs. That might mess with him mentally coming into the next season. So I don't think it hurts them to have another weapon, another veteran in the locker room. And it just, yeah, it helps them compete with these other teams who are really diving deep into free agency, making trades, signing their good players. It's kind of what you have to do in the AFC.
Yeah. Want to know a player I feel bad for? Frickin' Justin Fields, man. Okay? He goes to Chicago, awful team. Seems like they didn't even care. Now all of a sudden they get Caleb Williams, and it seems like they want to try and win a Super Bowl now. Didn't do that with Justin Fields. The guy goes to Pittsburgh, starts 4-2. He, even in Chicago, was the only thing that made those games watchable. The guy, there was a few times rushing over 100 yards. He's passing. He shows he can play. Is it a good decision for him to go to New York? I mean, I know that they have Garrett Wilson, they have some players, but we saw what even Rodgers with good numbers was doing last year. And even Zach Wilson the year prior, you just don't see a lot of good quarterback play and a lot of winning come up there. I kind of feel bad. What's your thoughts on him going to New York?
100%. I like the move from the Jets' perspective. I think Justin Fields has a lot to offer, and I think he's actually an above-average quarterback in the league. And he's kind of just got passed on. Like, I don't think it was fair what the Steelers did to him. I think he was winning them games, and he was probably a better option than Wilson. But from his perspective, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like he's in a similar situation that he was in Chicago, where the team just doesn't care about winning. Like, they're not going to build around him. He has no weapons besides Garrett Wilson, and it's just going to be a couple years of losing, and I'm sure they'll ship him right out. So I feel bad for the guy. I wish him the best, but I'm not getting my hopes up.
No, and that's what I feel bad is I hate seeing quarterbacks because it literally could turn into where we just don't see Justin Fields after this contract's done because all of a sudden you just find them just falling down, has a few bad years in New York. But it shows that a person with a decent team and a good camaraderie around them, Sam Darnold showed that last year. The guy did nothing all those years. But then you look at the teams he was on, absolutely horrendous management, okay? And then you go to Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell brought him in, loved the guy, good weapons. It's crazy at how putting a person in a position to win, they end up winning. They're all actual good quarterbacks. You're mute.
Oh, my bad. No, exactly. And that kind of ties into another quarterback that we just saw moved in Zach Wilson. Like, I don't think he's a great quarterback, but say Tua gets injured, which he most likely will at some point this year. Now we get to actually see Zach Wilson play with some decent receivers. You got Tyreek Hill still there. You got Waddle. You got some quick running backs. So I think that's another one where we could see a quarterback who's kind of underperformed his whole career in New York and in Denver. He's actually in a situation where he has weapons. I think he could actually turn into a decent player if he's on a good team.
Dude, and he's kind of got some wheels on him. That was my only thing with Tua is you looked at how quick that offensive was, and then you have a quarterback who can't move. Okay, Tua's a pocket presence. I'll be honest, if Zach Wilson can grow some confidence again, because there are certain times where you saw him bombing it deep, you saw him take off running. If he can build that confidence with those weapons around him, I kind of hope Tua leaves the game early. I hope nothing but the head. I want him to be healthy. But man, I kind of want to see Zach Wilson play in that system.
Yeah, no, I think it kind of makes sense too, because ever since Tua's last concussion, he's taken a big step back. Like Waddle had a horrible year, Tyreek Hill was more average. Still a good year for a normal receiver, but for Tyreek Hill was horrible. So Tua's already taken a big step back. He's afraid to get hit. He's not running as much as he used to. So yeah, I think even like the slightest hint that he might be injured or he's scared, they're going to replace him with Zach Wilson real quick. And I'm excited to see what he can do. But another quarterback I'm kind of excited to see, not really in a great situation, but I think it is a little bit better. Daniel Jones signing with the Colts. What do you see them doing from here on out? They still have Richardson. I believe they still have Flacco on the roster. So you got three quarterbacks kind of all in that same tier of average to below average. They're all kind of trying to prove themselves. Flacco has already proved himself. Where do you think they go from here?
Yeah, so I think Flacco right now, when you hear him talk, I think he's just loving still being on a roster. Okay, I think he's the veteran guy there. He knows he's not going to be named the starter. He's there to help these guys. Now, it's a very interesting perspective from the Colts bringing Daniel Jones, another younger quarterback. He's still somewhat in his prime. Like, he's in his prime years. He should be playing his best ball. Then you have a guy you just drafted a couple of years ago who's supposed to take over the franchise. So from the owner and GM perspective, it's almost showing they don't really believe in Anthony Richardson. They kind of want somebody to compete against that job for him, right? Because they know Joe Flacco is not the solution. He's just their veteran presence. So bringing in Daniel Jones to compete, I think we're going to see some fire out of Daniel Jones, knowing the only reason they brought me in here is they actually believe I can compete for a starting job. You wouldn't do that unless you're doing it. But then that shows you don't have trust in a guy you just drafted a couple of years ago. What does that say about Anthony Richardson? And we saw that, was it just last year where he exited the game and said he was tired at the end of the game?
Joe Flacco was starting games that Anthony Richardson was healthy for, I believe. So I'm curious your thoughts. If during training camp and stuff, Daniel Jones does win that job, do you see them going into the season with Anthony Richardson as their backup? Or do you see them trying to maybe move him, get some picks, get some other weapons for Daniel Jones? It's weird to have such a talented young player already being a backup.
Yeah, no, and if Daniel Jones is still young enough that he can be under contract for a while, that if Daniel Jones shows he can still play, and you saw glimpses of it when he beat the Vikings in the playoffs just last year, not this past year before, Daniel Jones rushed for over 100 yards and threw for over 200 yards to beat the Vikings with an awful Giants team. So I'm kind of excited to see him, and I kind of want him in that position because when you see Anthony Richardson, you see the clips of him being good. And those clips are him running because he's a powerful dude blasting over people. You don't see too many clips of him as a passer. Yeah, maybe a bomb down the field, lucky, guy catches it. But the passes to win games where you're hitting those precision, slants, posts, you don't see that I think they kind of have concerns about him, okay? And that injury side of him. He's not like Lamar, where Lamar's a great runner where he gets down. Anthony Richardson's not that.
No, exactly. And I think that's probably why other teams aren't calling for him. Like, he's a good weapon, like, on the ground, and he can throw the hell out of the ball. But it's like he uses that running too much, and he's not safe with it. Like, he's already had injuries, and he's only played a few games. Yeah. It's like as he gets older and he keeps running, keeps taking hits, it's just going to get worse. Especially for a guy that isn't a great passer. I wouldn't want him on my team. So,
and that's what's going to get hard is his rookie contract will be coming up here in the next 2 years. Okay, because he's been in the league for 2 years. He'll have 2 years until they start talking about a rookie contract. Do you want to pay a guy $200-300 million who you have concerns about? And so I think that's kind of going through the Colts thing. And the Colts have always had pretty good management and stuff. Like, a lot of people respect them as a franchise. And so I'm kind of excited to see Daniel Jones as a fresh start there.
Yeah, no, I am too. I would hope that they add some weapons in the wide receiver room. They have a great running back in Jonathan Taylor. But one of the biggest names out in free agency right now just officially got dropped off the Rams, Cooper Kupp. He's been one of the best receivers in the league the last 5-10 years. His production's gone down a little bit the last couple. Where do you see him going? I think the Colts need some receivers. The Chargers only have one real option. The Seahawks only have one. What are some landing spots you see for Cooper Kupp?
You know, Kevin O'Connell coached Cooper Kupp before coming to the Vikings. He was offensive coordinator for the Rams, talked about how he wanted to put Justin Jefferson when he first got hired as the Vikings head coach, put Justin Jefferson in some of those packages he did as Cooper Kupp, where it's kind of played all throughout the field. You're not just a wide out, you're in the slot, you're this, you're that. Sam Darnold knows how to play with those type of people. He played with them last year where Kevin O'Connell was making that decision. I honestly would love to see him as a Seattle Seahawk. You have Njigba, who's showing that he is an unbelievable talent. You have Noah Fant, who I'm not saying he's a great tight end. He could go out there and do his job. You guys have a decent running back if he can just stay healthy, and Kenneth Walker. I think you throw Cooper Kupp in there, and then with you guys getting DeMarcus Lawrence, if he can stay healthy too, the Seahawks aren't looking as bad as what I thought they were going to be if they can find Cooper Kupp there. And I honestly, I think he would do tremendous. And it'd give Sam Darnold that extra thing because Njigba is going to be guarded like crazy. Cooper Kupp, I think, will be open, and Sam Darnold will find him. I would love to see him in Seattle.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. We just signed another receiver in Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So I think that makes sense as our third or fourth option. But having Cooper Kupp as like a second option to Jackson Smith and Jigba would just be huge, and it would be such a confidence boost for Sam Howell. But curious your thoughts. The Titans have the first pick in this year's draft. Will likely pick Cam Ward. They only really have one receiver in Calvin Ridley. Do you see them making a move here before the draft to kind of get another weapon there?
Dude, they need to. They have to. Because if they don't, you're setting Cam Ward up, who people are saying, is he I don't know if he's a generational talent. Okay, he had unbelievable weapons there in Miami. They were putting up insane numbers when he was in college because the offense was great. Now, if he doesn't have that offense, and if you see some of the clips where I was seeing people talk about him, he's kind of standing back there in the pocket for a while. That doesn't happen in the NFL. Okay, rushers are going to get to you. He needs some weapons, or sadly, I think you're just going to see a disaster. And that's why I think Shedeur, he doesn't want to go number one overall to the Titans. Yeah. I think he's looking at that as being a disaster. At least up in New York, you have neighbors, right? That guy's shown he's proven. I think they have to do something if they plan on getting him. And they may try and go for Cooper.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially like you said, you don't have a whole lot of time in the pocket in the NFL, especially when you're on the Tennessee Titans. Like, that team has been horrible for years. So you're going to need to get the ball out quick. You're going to need wide receivers open. So I think they definitely need to make a move. That's probably going to be a long rebuild, so maybe not Cooper Kupp since he is a little older. But I think they should make a move, make a trade. If there's any other decent young receivers out there, they need to do something.
I agree. And I want to wrap this up by ending with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think in the next few days we're going to hear who's going to be their starting quarterback. Who's it going to be?
My guess is it's going to be Rodgers. I think Rodgers goes there, and then I think Russ either goes to Cleveland or New York for the Giants. That's my bet.
Shout out Jersey Jerry. I've been seeing a lot of stuff. He's a ride or die by Russell Wilson, okay? Now he seems a little conflicted with this whole Rodgers stuff, okay? How do you think Pittsburgh would take to Aaron Rodgers? With the way Aaron Rodgers has been, Pittsburgh's a hard, tough community. Yeah. They've been known as that. He kind of was the New York, okay? He can go with all that stuff. But Pittsburgh, I agree. I think it will be him. But how is he going to actually fall into that community? Tomlin won't put up with his crap. That's my biggest thing.
I mean, it all depends on the results on the field. I think the same's for DK, who's kind of had some on the field and off the field antics that aren't the best for the league or for him personally. So I think it all just comes down to winning. If they're winning, if they're a playoff team, and they can maybe win a playoff game, his legacy in Pittsburgh will be pretty nice. If they're 5-12, they're losing games. DK's fighting people. Pickens is fighting people. Rodgers is doing his podcast. It's not going to go well for him. He's going to get a lot of flack from Tomlin, a lot of flack from the fans, and it's just going to tarnish his legacy. So it really just boils down to can they win games, which I think they'll be a decent team, but I don't see them really making that deep of a run in the playoffs.
No, I agree. And I want to end with this. Cooper Kupp, go to Seattle. Honestly, you guys have a great defense, okay? You guys do have not the worst offense if you can get him. I honestly would love to see him up in Seattle. I think Sam Darnold, you guys need another piece to just complement Sam Darnold and also in Jigba so he's not getting triple coverage. I know you guys signed today Scaldez Vantley. I don't think he's a great long term. It was a cheap deal. That's what was great for you guys. But I think Cooper Kupp could make a difference for you guys. So Cooper Kupp, when you watch this, since we get out to so many people, please just sign. Please just sign.
Please do it. We need it.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.